Mic check. Nice. All right, we're close enough to the hour. Let me flip this scene. Nice. Webcam is working well. This is why we start 2 minutes early. Let's flip this around. Just as we wanted. Nice and zoomed in, right? There we go. Hello and good morning. Welcome back to the Phase of Data stream. Let me resize this box slightly. Awesome. Welcome back to week 2 of me consecutively live streaming my Makeover Monday visualizations every week. If you're here from week 1 and came back, thank you. If you're here for week 2 for the first time and maybe missed the first or saw the VOD, also thank you. It's very nice to have the chat moving. It gives me something to look at. It makes me feel less like I'm talking to myself in my room. So thank you for that. So just like I did last week, I've tried to minimize the amount of looking at the data ahead as I can. I get tagged in a handful of things from the community, so I just kind of squint when I look at them. But yeah, with that in mind, I do know that the data set this week is on the world's space launch sites. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab that link from data.world. Heads up if you're watching this stream, by the way. Data.world is going to be retired on July 11th. That's not an us thing. That is a Data.world thing as a whole. So starting next week, we'll likely have 2 different platforms for you to find that data at. The first of which still being Data.world for kind of a transition period. And the second of which will actually be our own site for Makeover Monday that you'll be able to navigate to, find the data sets. You'll even be able to do a little bit more exploration around seeing other people's visualizations on a single unified platform. More to come soon. It's a little sneak peek if you caught the live stream, but yeah, stay tuned. What do we have this week here? So the original visualization, I think, is always a good place to start. We've got the world's space launch sites. So it looks like we've got a whole bunch of launches. I assume each record is going to be one launch. Um, And looking at total launches by country, it looks like the US, China, and Russia are going to be the biggest share here that we're going to be working with. They've even grouped rest of world as green in this case. And let's take a peek at this data. Let's download this guy. And yeah, so we've got country, country group. Awesome. I'm just going to pull this into Tableau. And I pre-opened my Tableau and made some things bigger. So hopefully on the stream, it's a little bit easier to see. That is always the goal from me. Awesome. Name this space launches. Good. So we've got country, country group, and Tableau crashed. How awesome is that? Let's grab 26.1. Okay, well, so much for resizing things in advance. It'll be all right. We'll take care of that. Just skip it for now. Maintenance update might be exactly what I need, to be honest. But okay, here we are. Let's go ahead and format my workbook really quick. And this is a little hack if you're ever sharing your screen and you want things to just be bigger across the board. Maybe I'll make this 15. You can update your entire workbook font size settings here from that format workbook option. And this will just persist throughout the entire workbook as we move through pages. So first thing I want to see is I want to look by country here and get a feel for everybody that we have in this data set. Interesting. Okay. And let's just grab our count field, which would be easier to see if I renamed my data source space launches, or maybe I wouldn't. And let's sort this. Okay, so as far as count of launches go, Russia definitely leads all time here, US and then China, and those were the three that were handled individually. I'm actually just going to copy that structure that the original had, where they grouped all of these countries. Hover over this bar and select the paperclip for group. And I am going to label, and let's make each of these their own group. Perfect. And then we've got our country group field. I know they had country groups. I should probably look and see what those are. Here, flip these around. China, major non-NATO ally. NATO ally. Oh, this is interesting. Other. I mean, it is interesting, but it's a small slice of the data. I'm just going to stick with grouping those as other. I think there's probably interesting insight there, but it's not a path that I want to go down today. And this we're going to just rename to not other, apparently. Rest of world. And for cleanliness, I'm just going to change Russia to Russia, and United States is fine. Awesome. And now we've got our bars. Cool. So I think these are going to be the grains we're probably going to want to work with. Now, I'm curious, do we have like a launch site? Yes. Or like a launch site name would be launch site name. Perfect. Um, nice. So these are the same grain, it looks like 45 marks, 45 marks. Cool. So we can maybe plot the lat and long of these launch sites. I see we have a lat and long field here. Go ahead and drag these guys on. And I'll drag our launch site name to detail. Did I flip-flop these? Yeah, I did. Oops. Latitude and longitude. And yeah, now we have a map with all of our launch sites available on it. We can start by sizing those based on the total number of launches. And again, we start to see that the map is definitely skewing towards those leaders here. We've got two big launch sites in the US. Full transparency, I don't know a ton about space launches. I know Starlink has been a big thing recently where we've been sending satellites up, and that's been a lot of launches to space. But as far as like the history of like Russia versus the US, I don't know. Actually, that's what we should look at. Let me make a timeline. Let's grab launch date. Oops. Option and click launch date to columns. Let's make that continuous. Then let's grab our count field again. And I've got the symbol of doom. We've got a line chart, but I actually want to make this a running total. Nice, nice, nice. And then we can take our country groups and add that to color maybe. And yeah, okay, so this is kind of what I expected. So orange here is Russia. They come out the gates starting in like 72, shooting off way more vehicles into space than anybody else. But in recent time here, the US is actually catching up a bit as far as cumulative total goes. um, which is quite interesting. So it looks like the US today is about where roughly Russia was in 91. So we are still years behind as far as catching up goes. But that's pretty interesting. So, and then down here we've got China. China has also been making a similar motion upwards, which makes sense. Cool. All right, so that's good to know. And that's why we see bigger bubbles here for Russia. Kazakhstan apparently has a pretty big launch site. And there's some smaller ones here. I would be curious to see what does a similar map look like if we add like a year filter to this. Um, and let's just grab like the last 10 years. Not too much changes. Not too much. Russia bubbles definitely shrink. China bubbles definitely grow. The US stays relatively the same. Nice. Just wanted to see what we were up to in the last 10 years. Now, what if we add Starlink mission? Yeah, of course, we just have those bubbles over in the US. Is that right? Yeah, I guess I can add that to filters just to be clear. Filter on this. Yeah, so Starlink has only been sent out of, there's two marks, so two different launch sites, one being Vandenberg in Cali, one being Kennedy slash Cape Canaveral in Florida. So cool. That is interesting. What other fields do we have? Mm, So country, we've got launch categories. That could be interesting. Let's take a look at that. Where's my bar chart? Let's duplicate this. And I already don't like these default colors. So I'm just going to find my country group and I'm going to go to default properties and color. And let's find something a little bit more fun. Um, how about these? These color brewer colors look pretty nice. Maybe we'll go China. Maybe that's bad. Maybe I should do, I guess Russia we can do like green maybe. US will do blue. Rest of the world we can do gray. Hey, happy 4th of July, Matt Huff. Welcome to the party. Thanks for waking up. Are you working today? I am not, but for consistency, I kept the time the same. So I woke up. Okay. And then we wanted to add, I forgot what that field was called. Launch category. And what we see is there are two categories. There's deep space and there's orbital. Let's actually flip the order of these. Um, Interesting. So as far as, oh, and Matt Meyer, hello, welcome back. Happy 4th. All the Matts are in here today. It's just me and a pack of Matts. Awesome. United States, Russia, West. Okay, so US actually does have more deep space launches than Russia does. And there's probably a temporal component here. I assume that deep space launches have been more popular recently. Matt says, no work for me today, but my alarm still went off. My alarms are making. I am not excited for that chapter of my life. At least that piece of that chapter of my life. Um, awesome. Let me see what this looks like again. I'm just going to name this sheet so that I can start to get a little bit organized here. Bars, launch categories, I can't type, slash countries. If I duplicate this and we add that year filter again, I'm curious to see what the last couple years look like. Maybe like pandemic onwards. Um, okay, so we still see a ton of orbital launches. We are starting to see Russia take the back seat, which given that they are in a war, does make sense. I would be shocked if they were still sending out the most space launches while being in a war. It is interesting how much closer China is in that percent of total here in recent years. That's actually another good view we should check out is maybe like a percent of total for these groups. So let's take, we could keep launch category for now. Um, Something like this, and then we can just change this to a percent of total. And then we want to compute using our country group. Let's just add our quick labels on here. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this. Deep space and orbital. So as far as like China goes, they have a bigger share of orbital than they do deep space. Same with Russia. Rest of world does as well. Wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm backwards. Orbital, Russia. They're sending more stuff orbital wise. And then as far as deep space goes, US and rest of world are leading as far as share goes there. I'm going to make a note of that to myself for later. US leads in share of deep space launches. Very fun. Does that have to do with Starlink? I think it might. Where's my Starlink field? So this, no, okay. So Starlink is classified as orbital. That makes sense. It orbits the planet. It's a satellite. Reading the chat for a second here. Do do do. Best kind of session is only Matt's. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that Russia still had a big presence. That's interesting. I am learning today. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. Uh, Put that in parentheses for myself. Cool. And that's a recent thing, right? There's no way that Starlink launches have been around that long. And we'll be able to see that if I drag this to like rows. Yeah, it looks like the earliest Starlink activity was in 2019, and that goes through 2026. And that likely contributes a good amount to the bump that we see for the United States. So you can see this sharp spike here. When we split that out into Starlink, yes or no, it really does smooth out a bit. So this bump here from Starlink orbital satellites is definitely something to consider. Interesting. Mm, do we have like, what other fields are there in here? Oh, we do have launch outcome too. That's a fun one. Uh, Launch vehicle, launch vehicle type. Interesting. Size, lat long. Okay, as far as these weight fields go, I don't know a ton about the difference between SSO metric tons, LEO metric tons, and actual payload. I can see that they are different. Um, I'm probably going to stay away from them in an attempt to not use the wrong one. If I had a good visualization in mind, we could maybe do like a parameter where you could swap the selected metric in and out so that if you wanted to maybe show actual payload, you could have that start by default. You could toggle to the LEO metric tons or the SSO metric tons. The direction that my brain is kind of pulling me is not that right now. So I do want to check out successes versus failures, and potentially we could even do that by like launch vehicle and just see what that looks like. So let's grab launch vehicle. Let's make this entire view, not entire view. Let's make this fit with, and maybe I'll grab launch vehicle type too. Is that? Yeah, it definitely does fan out the view a bit. Oh, I see. Okay. So launch vehicle type is more specific than launch vehicle. Like this Ariane 4, there's a 40, 42L, 42P, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and see what the failure rate looks like. Where is my field again? Launch outcome is what I'm looking for. We will put that here. We will make that a count. That's not what I want. I want to make a calculated field. And we will call this is successful launch. And that's going to be launch outcome equals placeholder for a second. Do they have it as success? Is that what the field was? Yeah, success with a capital S. Put this on color. Okay, and despite the orange looking like there might have been a lot of failed launches, I'm just going to flip this. I don't know, maybe we want to emphasize the falses. Okay, interesting. This is tough to look at. I'm going to take LV type off for a moment and just try to get a lay of the land here. Let's sort these. Okay, so across the board, we tend to see some level of failure. I think it's probably pretty rare. I'm going to name this sheet really quick. Bar chart, failures by LV. And let's duplicate this one time. And let's change this count to a percent of total. And then we want to compute using our is successful launch. This is interesting. This already reminds me, because of the colors probably, of the infamous viz of the Toll of War, where you have the blood splatters coming downwards. Obviously, this isn't by year, but same kind of look. And then do I have my sort still by launch outcome? Okay. So the good news is for these ones with 100% failure rate, they have some of the lowest launches. So it looks like, generally we would expect a triangle pattern towards that top upper left corner, because if things are more successful, we're going to want to send them out more frequently. Out of curiosity, if we filter this again to like recent years, I keep going with kind of pandemic slash post pandemic. Still kind of the same as far as just like a quick visual check goes. It's not like we see a massive reduction in red. It's pretty sprinkled throughout, which is good to know. And then what about if I do the same thing here? Launch date years 2026 to 2020. I mean, there's a lot of successful launches. Falcon 9 is the big one. If we add country to the mix, I'm curious if here, what if I make this an attribute? So the Falcon is exclusive to the US. Is that okay, so something like I might mispronounce this, but the Soyuz is being shipped out from multiple countries. Same with the Electron. Long March 2 is the big China tentpole vehicle, it looks like. Long March, Long March. Interesting. China's got some others. There's a lot to this stuff that I don't know about. Skimming the chat again. Is that in the competition with blue? Percent of total by year. Oh, that's a good idea, Matt. Try percent of total by year to take. Oops, take this guy and let's do. Hopefully we see, I mean, this is the recent time. Let's move this out and make these bars. Yeah, it's a better story. It's a little bit more enlightening. Interesting. Okay. Let's leave this in here. Percent of failures by year. Could be insightful. Where's my... This is what happens. You don't name your sheets. You just click back and forth. So what if I'm just going to call this running total trend. If we change this from a running total to not that, and we make this maybe like year. So we do see here, and let me take Starlink mission off for a moment. Interesting. So yeah, kind of as I was curious about, Starlink definitely is a driver for this massive spike here from the US. This might actually look better as an area chart ish. So we can see, like, no, it actually doesn't look better as an area chart. We can see US in, especially, so 2021 we were below China. 2022 we surpassed China, and then 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 is an incomplete year. We have surpassed China. If we add that Starlink field to remove Starlink from this running total, or from this total number of launches, we can actually see that China still is doing more launches in the US. So that might be a piece of insight that I am interested in conveying. US launches trend without Starlink. And I'm just going to note to myself, when splitting out Starlink, US launches, I'll just say China launches surpass. I think it was 2023. So the insight there is Starlink is major driver for total US launches. So awesome. Matt Huff data says stacked area. We could take a look at that as well. If we flip this over and we do this and we make this a percent of total, and we change this to compute using country group, we get something a little bit more enlightening. And then here, let me add my Starlink back in there. Yeah, this isn't too bad because we can start to see the share that goes towards the US here in recent years. But then when we split that out, we can see that that is mostly driven by Starlink activity. China has their own space station, but they're more secretive about their space program. Interesting. That doesn't surprise me. I see what you're saying, Matt. So if I were to do maybe one view that looks like this chart, and then we dual axis this with something that looks more like a calculated field. And we say, like, I can just make this like a fixed level of detail. fixed country and year. Oops. Give me the, what am I doing? If Starlink mission equals, I think it was just yes. I need to aggregate this. I broke something. Fixed country date trunk. Oh, because it is here. So we just take this count and we put this here. Naturally. Then we can do if max of Starlink mission. Well, then we need to add a higher level of detail to this. We can do this easier. This count field is causing me trouble. So I'm just going to make a rows field and label it 1. I meant to save that. Oops. Fixed country. So by making a row field, I'm pretty sure I can get around that error I was getting from the native count field. Fixed country and date trunk of year. I want the sum of if Starlink mission equals yes, then rows end. And this should be a legal calculation. And this is going to be LOD Starlink launches. And I believe this should give me my single line here. Let's make this guy like a dotted line. We've got that there. Make these dual axes. And Y is synchronized, not the default. No one knows. So this highlights the share that is Starlink. I don't love the way this looks. Maybe I'll flip-flop what's dotted and what's not. What does that look like? So if I make this dotted and I make this solid, and perhaps I increase the size a little bit. And it doesn't make it any more clear. Flip those back. Perhaps I lower the opacity of the solid lines a bit. And maybe I bump up the size of the dotted line a tad and make these more fine. It does work. It's interesting. I don't think it's a bad line chart. It does show when Starlink comes into play for the US relative to others, which I don't think is a bad thing. Cold War era space race and the new commercial space race. That's interesting, Matt. I like how I can just read the message in the chat and not the name and just say thanks, Matt. And it works for both. It needs to be added to the total US line. It is on the total, Matt. The faded out half opaque blue includes Starlink. Effectively stacked. I think that would double count. Oh, but I see what you're saying. If we were to do, so basically what you're suggesting is, let me duplicate this. I understand. if we were to do Starlink mission, I'm going to keep the nulls and hide the yeses here, but we want to tweak this calculation to not have this. I'll just say if 1 equals 1. Oh, no, I need to say if country is US. And then I can just hide the yeses and hide this header. So now what we've got is this blue line is excluding Starlink. This dotted line is inclusive of Starlink. And then I could even make this, what year did we say it started? Oh, I broke my view. Okay, hold on. Let's backtrack and do this correctly. We'll keep this intact, and then I'm going to duplicate this, and then duplicate the sheet. And this time around, we're going to change this to the field up here. And this is going to be US launches with Starlink. And now this time we say if country equals United States, then rows. This gives us the line that matches. Now we just need to add our Starlink mission as a dimension to split our view out. We can hide our yeses. Now we've got that view again, and this one is still intact. And that tells me that 2019 is the year that this starts. So if we go in here and we just add one more condition, I'm going to break this out a little bit. It's getting messy. Make it bigger for my audience. If country equals United States, I'm breaking it way out at this point. If country equals United States and date trunk year is greater than or equal to 2019. Can't compare date time manager. If date part is greater than, not, is date part right? Yeah. Date part gives me the number. Where'd the line go? Yeah, I'm sorry about the small resolution, Matt. I was trying to tinker with the max settings to make just like the overall heads up display larger. It is not easy, surprisingly. So it's on my to-dos just to tinker with that a little bit. I'm just going to make this easier and say year of launch date is greater than or equal to 2019. Where did my line go? I'm confused. This is breaking it, right? Yeah. Wait, this way broke it. Oh, am I on the wrong sheet? Because this is supposed to be showing me Starlink. If country equals United States and the year of launch date is greater than or equal. Oh, the view is the view is too wide. Oh, nice. Okay, so it might have been working. I'm a fool. I was losing my mind. Um, break this out. Launch date is greater than or equal to 2019. That's what I was expecting to see. Very nice. I was jarring when the line disappeared, but for some reason I resized my x-axis there, and I didn't even have the years 2019 onward into the view. Okay, I like this. This is something interesting to me. So, um, Starlink helps propel U.S. into the launch lead from 2019 onwards. Time check. We are at 8:36. We're gonna have to start building something. I like this sheet, so I'm gonna put some color on the tab. Uh, does this tell me anything that my other sheet does not? Maybe. I'll come back to that one. I don't think I need this sheet anymore. Mm. This sheet is the running total. This is just me exploring stuff. Well, this could be interesting. Um, what does this look like if I throw a forecast on? Oh, I can't do a forecast on a running total, I guess. What if I change this count field to rows and then I make this a running total? Now, can I do a forecast? No. Interesting. We can make this year and smooth the line a little bit. Hmm. This is like a maybe for me. Um, I might want to do something with a map just because it looks fun. We take our country group and put that on color. Make these circles a bit bigger, kind of obnoxiously big. We can even go. Let's move up the smallest mark size a bit. I think that's okay. We just need to lower this size. We can do no halo, but we can add a border. Maybe we can make these slightly transparent. Let me just really quick tooltip thoughts. This is going to be like launch site name, and then X total launches, and then I don't know, X point X% success rate, launch site name, total launches. And maybe I'll even do like date of earliest launch, date of latest launch. This could be cool. Okie doke. I gotta go back to that. I'm gonna read the chat again, and then I have to lock in. What do we have? I had to make a mobile friendly view for this stuff. That's probably going to happen in a longer amount of time than I'd like to admit. Yeah, also smoked pork butt for breakfast sounds delicious. Okay, yeah, you guys are just talking about the map view. I'm not going to read that too closely because I don't want my perspective skewed. Nice. Okay, this should work. Map of launch sites. We'll make that blue. And this is the deep space versus orbital thing. These bars are useless to me. This might be useful, but I think this is misleading. I think we don't want a percent of total here. I think we want to make it clear that orbital is the larger share, and then maybe we could zoom in on deep space. But actually, the only like narrative piece of my story that I have carved out is the Starlink bump, and because Starlink is orbital, I don't even think that calling out how small of a share of total deep space is even helps the narrative. There's maybe a case where I filter down to only orbital, but I don't think then we're not counting deep space, right? It's like a glass half full, half empty kind of thing, and you're always going to rely on the context you paint around it. So I'm probably just going to keep this as one holistic view. And this percent of total, if you break it out by year, tells us the exact same thing that this chart does. And I think that it's more insightful to see the year over year progression than this. So all that to say, I'm going to remove this chart. I think it was fun while it lasted, but it exists no longer. Why did I not delete this yet? I'm deleting it now. This one I said I'd come back to, and I'm not ready to come back to it yet. Failures. We'll have to think about color here, and if we want to use red or not, because we're using color for country. But mm, just thinking about if this would be more effective if we just removed the trues and we showed the decline like this, because then I don't actually need to use color to encode these values anymore. I can just show that this dwindles downwards. And I do wonder if I cluster these years, perhaps by decade. So for decade, right, we can take our year field, um, and we can say, this is one way to do it. Take the left three characters, and then of the left three, we want to take the right two characters to give us wait, sorry, take the right one character, and then plus 0. But then we need to make this a string. My brain is weird. I'm sorry if this is hard to follow, but I can speak to it in a second. Basically, we are taking our year field, we're turning that into a string, and then we're taking the three digits starting from the left. So, like in the year 1957, this will give us 195. And then of that 195, we're taking the rightmost digit, which is 5, and then adding a 0 to the end to give us 50, or the 50s. And then now I can back out. I can add, I didn't duplicate this yet, but I will now. I can add decade up here. The sort breaks, which is fun. '50s, '60s, '70s, '80s, '90s goes up a little bit. Is this more insightful than this? I don't think so. I think it's simpler, but I don't think it's more insightful or easier to look at, even. I think the value of this tail existing is the important part. If anything, what might be more interesting to look at is a view that just focused on our pandemic era onward. But then we need to fix these axes. So this is 0 to 0.75. And this is, yeah. Let's create a set recent years. There we go. So this is just highlighting the recent years and how much lower they are. I don't think that helps. People know. Cool. We will run with this. So, story in my mind is we talk about perhaps we start with the map, talking about all the different launch sites and all the different launches. From there, we can jump into the trend over time and how we see the number of launches change country grouping by country grouping. And specifically highlights that the United States has surged to the lead. Maybe this is coming back around to the idea of like a two-panel thing. It's a dashboard. No, it's fine. I want to do like a reveal piece where you start off by showing that spike and then you highlight that that spike is driven by Starlink, but I don't think that's necessarily more insightful there. So then we go from our trend. This running total doesn't really help. It's not insightful. Launches with US launches trend. No, I'm just going to get rid of this as well. And then, yeah, we just want our percent of failures by year. Do we want this by country? Country group. Make this yellow again. We can make this like a moving average. And then we want this for every country. I don't have time to fiddle with this right now. Yeah, we'll tie it together with the overall. That's fine. Let me make this tooltip really quick. Total launches is easy. We've got that. We've got that on already. Country group. Count of launches. Latin long we don't need. I'm going to uncheck include in tooltip. Our success rate I can calculate. If launch outcome equals success, then rows and divided by rows. And these need to be sums. Let's format this as a percentage with 1 decimal. Move this to our tooltip. Very nice. Date of earliest launch. We can do that easily. Earliest launch. I'll just do a fixed LOD. For every, I don't know if these are reused or not. I don't think they are. For every launch site name, I want the min launch date. Then I can option click and drag this. Earliest launch. Could be cool to do like a Gantt bar timeline too with these different launch sites. I will not be doing that, but if anyone else hasn't done their Makeover Monday and wants to explore a new idea, that's a thought, is to do like a Gantt bar and just show when these launch sites were active. Launch sounds like lunch. I am hungry. I'm thirsty. Mm-mm-mm. Nice. Latest launch. Option click and drag this. Select discrete. Okay, I think we've got all the fields we need in our tooltip. Let's clean this up a little bit. So we want launch site name, and then we could do like parentheses country group. And then we want this to say total launches. We want this whole thing to be here. Maybe we like italicize these. I want to de-emphasize these slightly. Something like that. Okay, and then maybe we reformat these. Earliest launch and latest launch. Default properties, date format. We could make these like MMM, YYYY. And then these can just be hyphenated, not barred. Isn't there a way? Oh, I forget what the calculation is. There's a. Hold on, I want to test my memory for a second. Jeff Schaefer showed a calculation the last two Tableau conferences. I think it was like 45.0. No, it would have to be 0.45. Something like this, where you could add a layer and then remove this from zoom extent. That didn't work. I don't know. Forget it. There's a way to shift the center of your map. What I'm probably going to do is just drag this and then hide the map controls because it's easier. And I'm a little lazy. This should be good. Map options. We don't need any controls on this guy. Nice. This tooltip needs to be, oh my gosh, I have 5 minutes. I might be going over a little bit. Starlink mission. This does not need to be in tooltip. The year, the country, the count of launches. Okay. So for this, I want this to be country, year, number of launches, and then potentially with Starlink for the other one. So that format here. Nice. Percent of failures. Just make this like a more neutral color. Cool. Dashboard time. 1400 by 850. Delete this layout. First container 1400 by 850. Second vertical container to catch my junk. Put that over there. We'll grab a text box and call it the title. We'll grab a text box and call it the footer. We'll grab a horizontal container and put it in the middle. We'll take this whole thing and add like 20 pixels of outer padding. Then how do we want to lay these out? We probably want the map on the top, and then these two are trends, so we might actually want them stacked. Oh yeah, Matt, the junk container is like my favorite, one of my favorite tricks, because when we add our map in here, all of our legends just get caught over on the side. They don't get put behind. Nice and easy. Don't need a title for the map. It's self-explanatory. We can remove the divider lines. Okay. And then we probably want the launches trend. It's worth noting that in a professional environment, there's a lot more planning that goes into these before you slap it all together. But this is Makeover Monday. We do things a little bit differently here. Must clean all the things. In case I want to hide the title on this, let me clear this. Okie dokie. That's a bad idea. Where did this data come from? Does anybody recall? Please don't type that in the chat, because by the time you type it, I will have found it, and I don't want to waste your time. AEI Space Navigator. It's not loading. AEI. Oh, their charts are pretty. I like how those render. Awesome. Something like that. Okie doke. We're gonna need some thinking on this. I don't like how this looks. Let us, on my salad, percent of failures. Launches. There's way more cleanup than I want there to be right now. Why don't I just make this continuous? That's a bit nicer. What is my first year here? 57 to 2026. I thought I got rid of this axis title. We will add a title. We will say, since the first space launches, failure rates have dropped significantly. Let's bold that. It's important. Add a title here. With the addition of Starlink launches, the United States spiked in total launches. Get that blue. I picked a bit of a rough color palette. It's okay. It's Makeover Monday. And I'm over by 5 minutes. World's space launch sites. Space launches over. I'll just call it space launches. And why not add a good old rocket ship? This is ridiculous. Add a title. Not that big of a title. The total launches by site. We just don't have enough real estate here. Oh, this map's just not fitting very nicely, um, which is annoying. Let us add a container. Put this inside of the container, and then put another container inside of that container. Grab this legend and this legend. Call this launches. That's fine. Call this country. All right, I'm gonna manipulate some stuff. I don't like the way that this is sitting. I usually don't make this bigger, but today is different. This way. Yes, there are implications for doing this. No, I do not care at the moment. I've still got this brutal white space over here. I'm getting close to saying it's good enough. It will do. Awesome. All right, I'm going to call it there. Thank you guys for joining today. I am going to get this pushed up to Tableau Public. And yeah, that'll do it for week 2. If you joined in, hopefully you learned something, found this useful. If not, maybe next week. Cool. Thank you guys. I will